What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Parisi podcast. I am flying solo. I am back in my own gym studio for a couple Ask Me Anything style episodes, and I hope you enjoy them. It's just me. Deal with it. We will absolutely have guests kind of on and off, but you will get a little tidbit of me here and there, especially when we do get a bunch of questions from the Parisi affiliate network, the All Access coaches, or just the Q&A box that we post on our socials. You can always check those out at Parisi Speed School, as well as at Parisi All Access. Those are where you're going to find me, as well as some of the other Parisi coaches throughout the network. So let's get right into it. I've got 15 questions. So what we're going to do is break them up. This is going to either be 7 or 8 on this episode, and will be a part 2 on this one, where we'll do the remaining 7 or 8. And if you ever want your question answered specifically, you can, again, go right to our socials and ask it, or you can always email us at info@parisischool.com. I will make sure that email address is indeed in the show notes, because we would love to answer your question. And that's one of the cool things about having media like the Parisi podcast, or just our socials in general, is in All Access. That's literally what we do in All Access, is we will take your question and we will answer it either to the best of our ability, or a lot of times we'll just take that question and expand on it and make it into a content series, because coaches ask really good questions. And I really appreciate that Parisi has always made content around coaches that actually coach people, athletes, teams, whatever it may be. So without further ado, let's get into question number 1. What is one mistake most young athletes or their parents make when it comes to training? And, the highlight here can be anything from expectations, patience, development over time. I think on the surface level is people want the results now. People want the results yesterday, or when the tryouts were last week. So I don't necessarily want to give that answer, because I think on a very surface level, parents, athletes want the results now. But what I think parents and athletes mistake is that the training is only a small piece of the puzzle. And I don't mean in a sense of you need to have all these other things, right? The sports skill and the recovery, but rather the adaptation, right? So you're learning. Sports performance training is largely, and I think really any type of physical training is a level or high level of skill acquisition. So if you're an athlete, if you're a parent, I think we just have an underappreciation of how long it takes to actually display competency. I don't need you to be an expert. I'm not talking about being the best of the best, but rather just how long it takes to be able to display a certain level of competency in a skill. Whether that skill is strength training, whether that skill is acceleration, leg recovery, center of gravity management. We have so many micro skills that go underneath these big, broad topics like acceleration, like top end speed, like change of direction, like absolute strength, like relative strength. It can be all these different things, but there's so many different micro skills that go into that it just takes an undisclosed, I don't even want to say a certain amount of time, but an undisclosed amount of time for the athlete to be able to display a certain level of competency that they can then take with them into sport practice, into game situations, whatever it may be. So it's almost the ability to deal with the unknown when it comes to actual training and acquiring these skills. And that comes with setting expectations, I think, is a big, right? So if that's the misunderstanding or mistake, how can we help them? It's about setting expectations on what athletes, what parents can expect when they train with you. This is one of my favorite things to tell athletes and parents whenever I would do their new athlete intake. As I would say, here's what you can expect in the first session, in the first week, in the first month, in your first training program. And I would itemize each one by duration, right? So first session, first week, either first month or first training program, depending on how your program lays out. And I would show how these skills build upon each other and how they layer on each other, so that there's expectations laid. And also you, as a coach, you have to back that up. So that's, I don't want to just say like, what are the mistakes? I want to give a little bit of the actual items behind that. Question number 2, how early is too early to start strength training? So this is something that I don't think will ever leave the industry. This idea of strength training is dangerous. Strength training is not for everyone. Strength training at certain ages is this, that, and the other thing. So from the research literature, I have seen that neuromuscular injunction, so doing some, and we'll take some tangents here along the way, but neuromuscular injunction can be beneficial as young as age 6. Now, what is neuromuscular injunction, right? So that's what it comes down to, is what are we defining as strength training? I would say that the second, right, so I have 2 kids. My oldest started a gymnastics program called Tumblebugs at around 2 years old. And that included balance beam walking, that included somersaulting, that included going on a trampoline and jumping into foam pits, that included climbing over obstacles, hanging from obstacles. If you asked me, I would say that all of that is some level of strength training at age 2. I would tell you that if you watch a human baby develop, you would see this neuromuscular continuum, right? We go from rolling to quadruped to crawling to assisted standing, kneeling to scaling, assisted standing to freestanding to walking. All of that has to do with strength training and physical development. And I think we just continue that pattern. So for me, I can just speak N equals 1. My kids have done strength training programs, right? Gymnastics and different activities that involve certain levels of strength from age 2. I've seen research that shows structured strength training at age 6 is beneficial, stimulating growth, play and fun. Like, we know it's not lining up with a barbell. It can be anything from a TRX to climbing over obstacles to utilizing relative strength in play, monkey bars. Climbing up like those rock walls. If you go to a playground, you'll see like sections of the playground have these like rock walls that kids can climb up. That to me is all strength training. Hanging on a swing, like a rope swing, is going to be relative strength. So I think we just need to define what strength training is, and we need to make sure it's incorporated in such a way that the kid is engaged with it so that they'll try. I think the biggest knock on strength training for kids, and this is all ages, if you want to say 16 and under, sure, we can classify it as very prepubescent, very adolescent child, is their attention span for complexity. So when it comes to kids, there's going to be a difference between having a kid push a weight plate, doing a plate push or push a sled, versus teaching them to squat. And I don't care if it's a body weight squat, if it's a PVC squat, if you're using a training bar, whatever it is. Teaching someone multiple joint actions is going to be very different than giving them an outcome exercise like a plate push, like a swing, like a throw. So I think a lot of it is how it's presented needs to be categorized effectively for the age and what they need. So I know we always say play-based, it needs to be fun, it needs to be this. It just needs to match the attention span, and we need to be able to put the kid in an environment, a physical environment that allows them to succeed, whether that be very play-based or slightly structured, like a Parisi Pee-wee program that's going to be for ages 5 and 6. They're very play-based, but there's just enough structure that you start to dabble with listening skills and communication skills and team building skills and all these other things. So to answer the question very specifically, I would say 6 in a very structured way, but we do need to define what incorporates strength training and then how it's presented. It's not an answer that we can really say without putting the actual strength training environment in front of us. So hopefully that answers that question definitively, but also a little bit of nuance, a little bit of what matters. Question number 3, what is the difference between training for speed versus training conditioning? I love this question. This question, on the surface, seems like it's a pretty elementary answer, but it's not. So I like speed. I know there's speed endurance. If you've listened to our podcast with Steve Leo, if you've done any of the Parisi all access information on speed endurance training that Steve has put out, that's where we really start to cross the bridge into conditioning. To me, conditioning just means the repeatability of power output. It means that the athlete needs to be able to repeat certain levels of power, certain levels of effort in their sport, depending on their position, sport level, etc. So I think a lot of times people think conditioning, they think gassers, they think beat tests, they think repeat sprints, etc. When it comes to speed, it's like training absolute strength. We want to see just how fast can you be in this one distinct effort. It's the top of the pyramid, so to speak. When it comes to conditioning or speed endurance, we're more so on the, I'll just say below the top of the pyramid. I don't want to say it's the base. I don't want to say it's the second layer, third layer, whatever. We're below the top layer, the pinnacle of the pyramid, and we are working on very specific qualities for the athlete when it comes to conditioning. On the surface, the difference between training for absolute speed or conditioning is going to be levels of power output, rest. It's going to be neurological demands are going to be higher for absolute speed training than on the conditioning level, but both can absolutely jack you up. So I want to be respectful to both of those. But the biggest difference is going to be how that skill is used and the repeatability of that skill. Typically, when you're training absolute speed, you're looking at more quality, less volume, and you're looking at longer rest intervals to make sure that the quality stays high. If we had to just get real superficial with it. So that was question number 3. We're moving through these. These are good questions. Question number 4. If you could give one piece of advice to every sports parent, what would it be? So this is what I would say, and it's a very biased answer because I am a parent of kids who play sports or are looking into playing sports, dabbling with sports, if you will. And I've also worked in sports performance for 15 years. So I've seen both sides, having not been a parent talking to parents, having been a parent talking to parents, and now being a parent and seeing my kid interact with sports. What I would say my number one piece of advice would be to understand long-term athletic development is truly long-term. Is to understand that if your child is a teenager and has never participated in a structured physical program, I don't want to say sports performance, but structured physical development program, preferably sports performance program, your child would benefit greatly from doing so. I am a big proponent when I look at my own children. Once a week, they're doing something physical. I don't care if that is intentional play. My daughter, obviously, we have a gym studio, so she'll come in and she helps me create her workout. She'll do body weight exercises, med ball stuff. It's fun. She thinks it's fun. She's obviously grown up in the gym, so not every kid has that experience. But what is really important is that a child is exposed to a structured physical program. Unfortunately, gym class used to be that, but it is probably not like that in today's world. But very important that your child is exposed to that and you make that a priority year round, whether it's once a week, whether it's every other week, twice a month during really busy months. Maybe it's a little bit more in the summer, but it's not 2 weeks during Christmas break or winter break. It's not a couple days during spring break. It's not 3 months in the summer. Make it a priority, 52 sessions a year and once a week, and do it, because your child is going to benefit greatly from being in that program. I'm not going to say it's going to save them from anything. They will just benefit greatly from being a part of it. And I think that's something that parents should prioritize. If I was to give a piece of advice to parents, that's what I would say. You're going to make time for a lot of things, parents, and for your kid, I think you could do a lot worse prioritizing other things. So make it a key part of your schedule. Okay, that was question 4. Question 5, what does a perfect warm-up look like for a youth athlete? The answer is it exposes them to a variety of movements. There is no perfect warm-up. I don't like that word perfect in this question. But if I had to say a good warm-up for youth athletes, and we'll say 16 and under, but it could absolutely be 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, all fall into the same category here, it's a warm-up that exposes the athlete to a variety of different movements, whether that be locomotion, deceleration, acceleration, reciprocal limb action, right? Opposite arm, opposite leg, this contralateral relationship in the extremities, getting them on the ground, applying force, receiving force, but in a way, and this is important, in a way that they can make mistakes safely. I think the best warm-ups allow athletes to make mistakes safely in a very controlled environment. That is a benefit that training has over reactive play or sports. Game speed, so to speak, is we can make mistakes in the warm-up. We can talk about them. We can correct them. We can add physical interventions. We can change the exercises, etc., progress, regress, lateralize, whatever. It's very important that the athlete be in a position that they can make mistakes and learn from them and be exposed to a variety of different movements. I love the Parisi warm-up, obviously. Starts with stationary movements, moves into different movement prep, finishes with ground activation and movements on the ground as well. It incorporates elements of relative strength. It incorporates elements of acceleration, deceleration, multiple directions, multiple limb velocities. Like it can be scaled up, it can be scaled down. It's going to increase core temperature, get you sweating. It's great. And I think that just a good warm up, and not using the word perfect, just involves those key elements. A lot of different movement, a lot of variety. An athlete can make mistakes safely. Question number 6. What is the biggest change you've seen in youth sports in the last 5 to 10 years? So the biggest change, and I don't know if this is a direct answer to this, I remember coming into Parisi 2011, and the stats were crazy. 75% of kids dropping out of sports by age 13. 2 out of 3 kids had child obesity. Youth sports was $1 billion industry. And over the last 5 to 10 years, those numbers have all increased. So the biggest change that I've seen is what we thought were crazy statistics have gotten crazier. I don't know what the updated stats are, but I know that youth sports are bigger now than they ever have been. I know that kids are as unhealthy as they've ever been, but also maybe as healthy as they've been, right? There's 2 sides to every coin. Modern medicine is amazing. But I think the biggest change has just been that everything has grown. Again, I don't know if that's the direct answer to this question, but what we thought were already outlandish numbers, I think the numbers are just more outlandish. I will also say, just from kind of a pure performance coach perspective, what has changed in the last 5 to 10 years, specifically in the last 5, has been the level of technology that is being implemented on the youngest levels. Whether that be U8, U9, U10, U11, U12, like these young kids are now having access to GPS, are now having access to sports science, sports nutrition, different electronic. I think of a device like BlazePod that we love. But if you go to the BlazePod Instagram, or you search BlazePod on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, you will see young kids using them. Gamification, yes, which is a great use for BlazePod, but also using them in a very competitive sports practice setting. And that's something that I think is just an observation at this point, right? It's just the implementation of technology across younger levels. I think that speaks to how accessible the technology is, which is a good thing, but also the level of competitiveness that these kids are now involved with. And I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It's nothing more than an observation at this point to answer this question. But those are 2 things that I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years as far as the sports performance industry goes. Question 7. I think we're going to get 8 on this episode. Question 7. How do you build confidence in an athlete who's struggling mentally? Okay, we're going to end on this question. This is a good question. It's a deep question. I want to make sure we spend some time on it. So we're going to end on this question. How do you build confidence in an athlete who's struggling mentally? This is an awesome question, because this was a question that I would get when we would do our new parent orientations. They would say, I see in your marketing, Parisi builds confidence. How do you do that? It's a great question. I'm going to answer it to how we did it. So competence is confidence. And that's not supposed to be just an alliteration, play on word. Being good at things builds confidence. When we look at athletes, when their confidence is shattered, when their confidence is waning, when their confidence is decreasing, more times than not, it is over a lack of skill, a skill set, or a situation involving a certain skill set that didn't go well, and the athlete starts to question their abilities. That is where you're going to see a lack of confidence, right? I missed a free throw because my free throw shooting isn't very good. I didn't make a save in this sport because my lateral ability isn't very good. Those are from a lack of skill. So when we look at building confidence in athletes, and this is an advantage that I think we have as performance coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, and this was definitely an advantage, speaking as someone who ran the Parisi program, worked with athletes daily. This was an advantage we had, is we were separate from their sport. So an athlete would come into our training sessions, they wouldn't have their lacrosse stick, they wouldn't have a soccer ball, there was no basketballs, there wasn't a net, there wasn't hoops in our facility, there was nothing sport specific in our facility. Nothing. We had dodgeballs, which we would use in our sessions, but there was no basketballs, there was no soccer, there was none of that. So when athletes came in, they were removed from their sports skills. So number one, we remove the athlete from the situation that they are feeling a lack of confidence in. They're no longer in their sport practice. They are not around their sport coach. And chances are they're around limited teammates in our facility as well, because we had a general youth program. There would be kids from this school, and this school, and this sport, and this everything. So they were removed from that environment. That was one advantage we had. This is exactly verbatim what I would tell parents. One, they're coming into our facility. They are no longer in their sports setting. So it's going to change their perception of what they're doing. Two, in our sessions, whether it be linear speed, multidirectional speed, strength, we're talking to athletes about how these skills are going to be used in their sport. Now, we may have in a linear speed acceleration training session, we may have a basketball player, a soccer player, a lacrosse player, and 4 football players. Right? There's our 7 kids. And we're talking to them about how transitional acceleration is going to be used in football and soccer and basketball. We're going to talk to them about how pure acceleration is going to be used here and here and here. And in this skill today, we're going to work on this very specific thing. And you're going to use it in your sport this way and this way. And that's it. We're just talking about the skill and how the skill is going to be used in their sport. We are not talking about the outcome that they're going to use that skill for. Hey, a basketball player is going to use transitional acceleration on an outlet pass, on a transition to fast break. That's it. There is no to get an easy basket, to hit a leg, because, and this is very important, because if that athlete is struggling in a specific skill set, is struggling in a specific activity or thing in their sport, well, I'm not very good at layups, that's why I'm here. You're not here because you're bad at layups. You're here because you're here to get faster, stronger, improve your lateral quickness, whatever it may be, which are going to help you get into better situations in your sport. Now, I'm not going to be able to teach you to put the ball in the hoop. You need to work on that. But from an athletic perspective, if we can improve your raw athletic skills, raw athletic talent, if you will, it's going to be able to put you in a better position in your sport setting. So how we would improve confidence in athletes is, one, we take them out of their sports skill, sports setting environment. 2, we're removing the key outcome and talking more about the process to which we're building competency around. Because again, competency builds confidence. Being good at something makes you confident, right? We don't go to work in our jobs to not be good at them. We show up because we want to be good, we want to get better. And when you're good at something, you're confident in that thing. I'll always remember this story, and I'll kind of end on this one. And this was a big eye-opening moment for me. I remember my daughter's turning 7 here in a couple of weeks. She was probably 3. She had a puzzle. It was an oversized fairy puzzle. I'll always remember this. She would dump it all out. It was about maybe 20 pieces, 15 pieces. She would put it all together. And then she'd say, Daddy, break it up and mix it up again. I want to do it again. And I would say, hey, why don't we do this puzzle? Why don't we try this one? I like this one. This is Moana. Let's try this Moana puzzle. She said, no, Daddy, no. I want to do this puzzle because I'm good at it. I know how to do it. I want to do this puzzle. And it reminded me that being good at something is fun. It's fun for my daughter to do this puzzle over and over and over and over again, because she knows how to do it. She's not bored being good at something. So it was my own feelings of, hey, let's switch it up. Let's try something new. But for her, this new thing, she doesn't know if she's good at it. Yes, it's a good skill to practice these new things. And eventually she will. But for this individual, it was very exciting. It was very confident for her to be good at that thing over and over again. So I remember being the program director at our speed school and kind of having this eye-opening moment. And it really changed the way that we presented our training sessions to our athletes and to the parents of these athletes, just about how we would actually improve the confidence of the athlete in the training session, because that was a huge value to the family, to the moms, the dads. Not so, I mean, the athletes, yes, like they know, oh yeah, I'm going to be more confident. Like that's good for me. Unless that athlete was seriously down on their confidence, it wouldn't necessarily hit. But for the parent, it always hit. That was exactly how we did it, by building confidence and competency in other skill sets outside of their sport that they could then take into their sport. So that's AMA Podcast Part 1. Stay tuned for Part 2. Later on, we will answer the back half. We're going to go 8 questions on the back half of that pod. Take it easy, everyone. We'll see you on All Access. Again, if you have questions, wait, before we leave, pod producer Josh, don't edit this out. Before we leave, if you have questions that you want answered on an AMA podcast, info@parisischool.com. That email will be in the show notes as well. Send them in, let us know, and we will answer those questions. Catch you guys in the next pod.